Good morning. It is Tuesday, April the 4th, 2023. I'm Pearson Bowen. This is a CBC Morning Report. Inflation across the globe is already placing severe pressure on the world's central banks. Added to this is an announcement from OPEC that less oil will be produced from next month. The cut will include 1.16 million barrels per day, and this news has already seen a sharp rise in global oil prices. To discuss this impact this will have on the inflation and Barbados in general is economist Professor Justin Robinson. But first, here's a report that includes an explanation from OPEC.
On Sunday, the OPEC Plus group, led by Saudi Arabia, said it's slashing daily output by more than 1 million barrels a day. That sent prices up on the global oil markets. Brent crude, a key benchmark, jumped more than 5% on Monday to trade above $80 a barrel. The International Energy Agency, an independent watchdog, says supplies were already stretched. In a statement, it said the new OPEC Plus cuts risk exacerbating those strains and pushing up oil prices at a time when strong inflationary pressures are hurting vulnerable consumers around the world. Amina Bakr is chief OPEC correspondent at Energy Intelligence, an energy information company. Joins us now from Dubai. Good to have you with us. So the suggestion there that these these production cuts are pushing the world into even riskier territory when it comes to inflation. Do you agree with that analysis?
I think this is a very partial analysis that's being communicated by a lot of the consumer states, especially in the West. However, allow me to explain why this cut took place. This cut represents a very strong message to the market at a time when you had a lot of speculation, and this speculation was driving the oil price down. This cut came as a message to the market that speculators cannot run away with the market messaging. So it came as a kind of a reminder that OPEC is present, OPEC is active, and OPEC is willing to step in with market management. Now, it doesn't mean that these cuts are going to remain. For the time being, they decided that they're going to start in May and remain until the end of 2023. It doesn't mean that they won't be revised at some point. It'll depend on the market conditions. But the market at this point required a reset, especially after the banking crisis, which saw a lot of negative sentiment in the market.
Well, joining us now is Professor Justin Robinson. Mr. Robinson, good morning to you. Can you hear me, sir?
Hi, good morning.
You don't have to mute, we'll take it from here. Now, help us understand what's going on here with this sharp cut in production from OPEC and its impact possibly on Barbados and the region.
Okay, so good morning again. So in your excerpt, we heard the perspective from the OPEC side, where in recent times, investors, or you call speculators, people who trade oil for investment purposes, have been acting in a way that has seen the oil price decline. So OPEC is stepping in to stabilize prices from their perspective. There's a sense that within OPEC and these other oil producing countries, they do not want the price of oil to fall significantly below $80 a barrel. That seems to be their target. So from the production side, that's the perspective. Of course, the challenge now is on us and other countries that are major consumers of oil. This is probably the worst news you would want to hear, coming on the back of sort of an inflationary spiral. In many ways, the main issues I see is that central banks around the world have been engaging in a policy of increasing interest rates as a means of fighting that inflation that we've all been feeling if you make any trips to the supermarkets or wherever. Now, those rising interest rates have increased the risk of a global recession. Now, a global recession clearly has a negative knock-on effect for Barbados, particularly a recession in our major tourism markets that creates an economic headwind for us. Now, if oil prices are going to keep high and rising, then it increases the risk that central banks around the world will have to keep interest rates high for longer or God forbid, maybe even raise them higher, which further increases the risk of a recession in one of our major source markets. So alongside the possible direct impact of an increase in the cost of oil in Barbados, because even though we are in the midst of a renewable energy drive, we still are heavily reliant at this point on fossil fuel. So that increase in oil price will have an immediate impact on the cost of living in Barbados. And if that increase in oil price forces or incentivizes central banks around the world to keep interest rates high or even raise them further, that will also elevate the risk of a global recession in one of our major source markets. So not good news for Barbados all around.
How soon do you see the ripple effect, the decision made to cut production, how soon do you see that impacting Barbados?
Usually there's a lag of at least 2 weeks as we tend to have shipments come on island. So I would say within the next 2 to 3 weeks, we would likely see the effect of this latest rise in prices.
Is there nothing one can do to prepare for one or to stymie the impact of this reduction in production and the rise in cost?
Well, at this point, there isn't a lot we can do in an immediate sense, but it does create a further incentive to accelerate that transition away from oil towards renewables as quickly as we can. Now, the impact on our potential tourism, if there's a global recession, that's largely out of our hands. It will really depend on what the major central banks do. But we can expedite any renewable energy projects that we have in the pipeline as we seek to reduce our dependence on this resource, which can be volatile in price.
Professor Justin Robinson, we have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us on the Morning Report.
Yeah, thank you and have a great day.
Likewise. Coming up, Donald Trump's historic court appearance in New York just hours away.
While you go about your business, we go about our business, and that is gathering the news. Stay up to date at CBC News Barbados on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. Get news update on radio throughout the day. And join us for the CBC News Night at 7 every night. CBC News team is on the job and bringing you the news.
There is a saying, you can find a Bajan anywhere. Are you a Bajan living abroad? Or do you know of one who has migrated to another country? Well, we at Mornin Barbados would love to have you or them on our Bajan Afar segment. Share your amazing stories, experiences, and how you have adapted to a new culture. Send us an email to morninbarbados@cbc.vb. And together we will travel the world.
Former United States President Donald Trump is in New York City for today's first scheduled court appearance. He is to face charges related to a hush money payment made to an adult films actress before the 2016 presidential election.
He was taken via motorcade from the airport to his Manhattan residence at Trump Tower, where he'll spend the night. He's being charged in connection with an alleged hush money payment to adult film star Stormy Daniels during the 2016 presidential election campaign. Trump says the case is political persecution at the highest level and has called for his supporters to protest.
Really surreal scenes here on Fifth Avenue in Midtown Manhattan. There were hundreds of journalists here and camera crews. There are several dozen pro-Trump supporters holding flags and banners and chanting his name. And then you just have tourists and people that work in this area just sort of crossing through here. This is one of the busiest areas of New York City, of course, one of the biggest and busiest cities in the world. So it's just quite a lot of activity around here. When Trump arrived, he was escorted in a motorcade through a side entrance. So almost nobody saw him, only very briefly, a few people. And he is now in Trump Tower now, where he's expected to spend the evening holed up inside there, preparing for this historic surrender, which we expect to happen on Tuesday.
So tell us what that's likely to include.
Well, there's going to be a lot of security, number one, and we believe that he will be arriving at the district attorney's office around 11 a.m. on Tuesday. And there's two parts to this surrender. Part one is arriving to the district attorney's office around 11, where he will have his fingerprints taken and also a mugshot, a photograph taken as well. That process, it's called a walkthrough process, will take between 1 and 2 hours for that to happen. All the while, there will be huge security outside the courthouse as well. The courthouse is about 6 kilometers south of Trump Tower, where I'm at now. After the mugshot and the fingerprints are done, he'll be walked down a hallway, and that's when he'll come face to face with a judge in a courtroom where he will face his arraignment. Trump's lawyers said that he will plead not guilty to all the charges against him. At that point, we'll also most likely get to see the actual indictment for the first time as well. After that's over, the arraignment should only be about 30 minutes or so. He will be said that he can leave. He will then be escorted out of the courthouse under high security. He said that he will then be taken immediately to LaGuardia Airport here in New York, where he will fly back to Mar-a-Lago. Well, then he will give a speech Tuesday night.
Well, Russia's State Investigative Committee says they've arrested a suspect for Sunday's deadly bomb blast that's being linked to the war in Ukraine.
This is 26-year-old Daria Trepova being questioned by Russian authorities in St. Petersburg. I brought a statue there that blew up, she says. Who gave you the statue, they ask. Can I tell you later, she replies. The bus was handed to prominent military blogger Vladimir Tatarsky. It exploded, killing him and injuring dozens of people on Sunday evening. Trepova has yet to provide a name and says she's been framed. The attack happened at a cafe in the heart of St. Petersburg. The National Anti-Terror Committee, which is part of the Russian security service, says it was planned by the Ukrainian Special Services, a charge authorities in Kiev have denied.
We expect that now Russia also will know the response. But everybody asks, how many people will be killed by Kiev regime here in Moscow before Russia will respond? Nobody knows exactly. But probably more time coming, more strong will be a response.
Tatarsky was speaking at an event organized by the Cyberfront Z movement, an association of people with patriotic views. He was a supporter of Russia's invasion, and the social media channel he launched to report on the so-called special military operation had more than 500,000 subscribers. Tatarsky was a well-known figure among Kremlin supporters. Seen here with Daria Dugina, who was killed in a car bomb attack in the Moscow region in August. Her father, Alexander Dugin, a far-right political philosopher, was believed to be the intended target.
The Kremlin says Tatarsky's killing is an act of terror and that evidence implicates Ukrainian special services without providing any further details. While these types of attacks are rare in Russia, the planning and plotting behind them suggests that the battles are no longer confined to the Donbass region.
Coming up at 6:30, when you join me for Morning Barbados, our conversations on CARICOM continue, and Ambassador David Commichon will join us ahead of a very significant event that happens today in Barbados. We'll be talking about that, plus Barbados' efforts to continue to deepen its relationship with the diaspora. If you've ever browsed the pages of the Inua Magazine, then you know it's about celebrating and uplifting black and brown achievements. And so the founder of that magazine will join us in just a little while. Also today, when Dr. Gillian Birchwood pays us a visit, we're going to take a look at one of those infections that affect many of our nation's children, hand, foot and mouth disease. Can you recognize it, and what do you do when you do recognize it? We'll talk about those and a whole lot more straight ahead on Morning Barbados. The Morning Report continues.
There is a saying, you can find a Bajan anywhere. Are you a Bajan living abroad? Or do you know of one who has migrated to another country? Well, we at Mornin Barbados would love to have you or them on our Bajan Affair segment. Share your amazing stories, experiences, and how you have adapted to a new culture. Send us an email to morninbarbados@cbc.vb. And together we will travel the world.
Enjoy movies, soaps, drama, comedy, inspiration, education, music, and more. You get it all when you get MCTV, because MCTV gives you more.
Some ask, what makes Barbados so special? We at Mornin Barbados say it's you, our exceptional youth. You are talented, resilient, and inspirational. You are the epitome of the Barbadian spirit, testing the boundaries of your creativity. If you are an entrepreneur, artist, baker, designer, author, or have done anything you think should be highlighted, email us at morninbarbados@cbc.
The government of Barbados is committed to signing a new social partnership protocol on May the 1st. This announcement last evening from Colin Jordan, the Minister of Labour, Social Security and the Third Sector. It was the occasion of the 30th anniversary of the signing of the first protocol by social partners in 1993.
The work of the social partners coming together has created for us a governance system in this country where all partners work together for the good of the nation. We remember the pioneering efforts of the then Prime Minister Sir Lloyd Erskine Sandiford, the leader of the workers, Sir Roy Trotman, and the leader of the private sector, Sir John Stanley Goddard. These men, along with many others, worked hard to make sure that we could put together a system that could help us to get through the challenging times within which we found ourselves. And this social partnership has continued to work and to see us through many challenging times. We recommit ourselves as a government to the social partnership, to social dialogue, and to engaging with our partners in ensuring that we do all that is right to move our country forward and to improve the lives of the people of this country. We celebrate, we look forward to continuing our work as a social partnership, and we expect to be able to have a new protocol to be signed on May the 1st. That commitment is to make sure that we work together as partners to develop our country, recognizing that none of us can do it alone. We need each other, and we recommit ourselves to working together for this cause.
More investigations are expected under a new suite of legislation to track down any corrupt official holding public office. Attorney General Dale Marshall says there's to be a return of the Integrity in Public Life legislation, which was previously defeated in the Senate. He's optimistic about a different outcome this time around and highlighted some of the other steps being taken to hold civil servants accountable.
We've had our integrity legislation defeated in the Senate. That was in 2020. We've brought it again. I don't know what it will turn out like on this occasion. But in the meantime, as I said, we've passed a new Anti-Corruption Act. We've also brought to the statute books whistleblower protection. We've also brought new public procurement legislation, which attempts to ensure that there's transparency in all of our procurement processes. And we've also established by statute a special agency to deal with anti-corruption issues. All of these things we've done because we want to underscore the importance of accountability for all public servants. None of them are going to be popular.
During a regional training workshop on anti-corruption and misconduct in public office at the Radisson Aquatica. Investigating corruption in public office in Barbados has been difficult, to the point where Barbados has never seen such a case.
We also had to bring in investigators from overseas. Not that number, but we had to bring in investigators from overseas because in a country with just under 300,000 people, everybody knows everybody. If you don't go to school with somebody else, you went to the same school, your children probably go to the same Sunday school, and it's really very difficult in a small society like ours to be able to convincingly pursue matters in terms of investigation where acts of dishonesty are involved.
The Attorney General also commented on the Donville Innes situation. The former government minister was recently released from jail in the U.S. on money laundering charges after serving a 2-year prison term. Mr. Marshall went on to say prosecutors and other investigative officials need more tools and practice to beef up their ability to deal with cases of corruption.
That particular minister was charged with money laundering, not with corruption, because the alleged corrupt act took place in Barbados, but the funds were routed from Bermuda to the U.S., and then the whole thing fell apart. There's a huge discussion as to whether we're doing enough to tackle the issue. Now, one of our failings is that because historically we have not done a lot of investigative work in this kind of area, our people are trained, but I think Sarah and I were having a discussion recently, training without practice is just having possession of the theory.
Within another 5 months, a number of social services should be officially amalgamated. Minister of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs Kirk Humphrey says they are in the process of a deep transformation.
Hopefully by September, October, to be able to announce the amalgamation of the social services in Barbados. We have brought together the Welfare Department, Child Care Board, National Assistance Board, and the National Disabilities Unit. It is our view that in so doing we bring together all of the social workers and we are able to tackle these problems holistically, as opposed to going to a house and dealing only with the children, one agency. Another agency goes to the house, they only care themselves about the persons with disabilities. No. You want to be able to tackle the whole family. And I think that is what the amalgamation would allow us to do. Along with the amalgamation, you also are aware that we are deeply involved in legislative reform. We are reforming the disabilities legislation. I have the draft. The cabinet paper goes to cabinet next month. That cabinet paper has draft legislation, and it has a policy that has been ventilated significantly across Barbados. We met with all the stakeholders. We had public consultations. I believe it was properly ventilated. That goes to cabinet next week. We are about to finalize with the Law Reform Commission the elderly legislation too, the draft of that, and the drafting instructions. We have the policy. And as you all are aware, we have laid in Parliament the child protection legislation.
Mr. Humphrey added that one of the greatest challenges facing the Child Care Board is the recanting of child abuse reports, with people unwilling to see the process through when it gets to the stage of the court.
There have been cases where people have reported and then recanted. You know, by the time it goes to court, people withdraw their comments. They say that they don't know. You know, we know what happens. You know, in certain families, there are cases where the powers within the household, the power structure, the reliance on sometimes the finances of the abuser sometimes could influence the behavior of the person in the household as well. And so we know. But that is why I think in the new child protection legislation in relation to mandatory reporting, if you are in a position where you are what we call the duty bearers, if you either are in the household or if you are a person who comes into contact with that information in your course of business, then you are now obligated by law to report that abuse.
3 COVID-19 deaths have been recorded between March the 18th and the 31st. That's according to the latest figures from the Ministry of Health and Wellness. 295 cases were also recorded after 1,864 tests were conducted for that period. Barbados has recorded 582 COVID-19 deaths in total. To sports now, Ruturaj Gaikwad and the Moeen Ali were the star performers as Chennai Super Kings defeated Kyle Mayers and Nicholas Poran's Lucknow Super Giants by 12 runs in their Indian Premier League encounter yesterday. Gaikwad scored 57 in the Kings' 217 for 7 as Ravi Bishnoi took 3 for 28 for the Giants. In response, Mayers slammed 53 with 8 fours and 2 sixes, and Poran had 32, but Ali took 4 for 26 to clinch the win for the hosts as the Giants were kept to 205 for 7. Here are some of the match highlights.
Brilliant. Nimble feet. He clears this. Goes again. And goes all the way, this time a little further.
Swings it, could be out, should be out, it is.
Oh, that's a good catch.
Oh, again, brute power. Short, and it's been dumped. Goes again, not that long. Oh, top edge. Been a lovely spell from Ravi Bishnoi. Down the track and another wicket. Should be simple catch. And there's a deep mid-wicket. Bowling to a plan. He's eyed it up and he smashed it. Listen. No, big side out there. Safely held.
What makes Barbados so special? We at Mornin Barbados say it's you.
Indeed, good morning to you everyone and welcome to today. Today is the 4th of April 2023. It's Tuesday morning. It's always wonderful having you company. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Pearson Bowen. Thank you too for joining us on our streams on YouTube and Facebook. As always, it is good to see you there, to hear you there as well. Continue to interact among yourselves, but also to interact with us. If you're watching us on our website, cbc.bb, it's also good to have you company as well. Now today, Tuesday, but are you really sorry? Have you heard that before? Have you truly heard that before? Is it possible to be truly sorry? Well, there's a book that looks much into that, and so we want to talk to the author this morning about that. But are you really sorry? And what do those words mean, and how can we use those words to really show truly that we are sorry? My Brother's Keeper, that moving film, starts tomorrow in theaters in Barbados. We will get to meet them and hear a little bit more about what that film is all about and how you can benefit from viewing the film My Brother's Keeper. Carlos Cobham and one of the actors will be joining us in just a little while. Dr. Gillian Birchwood will pay us a visit today. We want to look at hand, foot and mouth disease in the children. Can you spot it when it happens? And when you do, what do you do? And how soon can we have alleviation of those challenges with a child who has hand, foot and mouth disease? And how relevant and how rampant is it in Barbados still? If you've ever browsed the magazine Inua Magazine, then you know it's all about the empowerment of black and brown people. The founder of that magazine will join us today. We want to hear why he started it and how is he continuing to raise awareness about the contributions of people brown and black in our societies across the world. But let's get started this morning by turning our conversation into our conversations on CARICOM. And Barbados Ambassador to CARICOM, His Excellency David Kamishon, joins us now. I'm so sorry, sir. Good morning to you.
You have my sympathy, Pearson.
You have one of those moments when your mind went somewhere else and then you had to bring it back quickly. But good to see you as always. Let's continue our conversations on CARICOM. There is something big happening in Barbados today. And I think for a lot of people, we can't gloss over it. So let's talk about what's happening and why it's so significant.
Well, you're referring to the renaming of the Vauxhall Primary School, the Shirley Chisholm Primary School, and yes, that's a biggie. that's a big development, and I think we need to put that development within the context of something that Prime Minister Motley said in her recent budget speech, and I just want to quote the relevant paragraph. This is what she said. There is therefore opportunity for us to start to gather once again as a people in 2025. We started it in 2020. We went from River Bay in St. Lucie through the parish of St. Peter and we got to St. Thomas. COVID came and wrestled us down. But the spirit of St. Thomas is so dominant that it has sent a message saying to us, 2025, let Bajans from all corners of the earth gather again in 2025, parish by parish by parish, so that collectively in December 2025, the whole of us will come back together. I have every confidence, Mr. Speaker, that 20 months to 21 months is sufficient time for all of you in Brooklyn, that's where Shirley Chisholm came from, and London and Manchester and all about the place, Toronto, enough time for you to plan not just to come home alone, but bring the whole family and the ones that ain't yet to see about here yet. End of quote. So I think what is happening today is a good segue into what will happen in 2025 when we revive gathering, we revive this effort to reach out to and embrace the Barbadian diaspora. And the reality is that there is no more important or potent symbol of the Barbadian diaspora than the Honorable Shirley Chisholm, the first black woman to become a member of the United States Congress and the first black and the first woman, and obviously the first black woman, to actually run for the presidency in a major political party of the United States of America. And as we know, Shirley was born in Brooklyn to a Barbadian mother and a Guyanese father who had in fact lived in Barbados. At the age of 3 years old, her mother sent her back home to Barbados to be schooled in Barbados, to live with her grandmother, to go to school, to live in the village of Vauxhall, and to go to school in the village of Vauxhall. She spent 7 years in Barbados, and she credits that socialization in Barbados with making her into the kind of woman that she became. And indeed, she always identified herself as a Barbadian American. She never lost that Barbadian accent, and she played such a critical role in the political life of the United States of America that we could not have found a better representative of the Barbadian diaspora to lift up and to honor as we are honoring her today.
And so this sets about to deepen that relationship with our diaspora, to be able to, and it also dovetails beautifully into heritage tourism, where people from all over the world will come here to find out just where did Shirley Chisholm go to school as a little girl. And so the opportunities are no doubt far deeper than simply the renaming of the school. As you said, is to be able to say, wherever you are, there's a Barbadian, and wherever you are and your contribution made, we want to recognize it here as well. Now, as we get ready for the Regathering 2025, how else are we reaching out to our diaspora to be able to sensitize them to it and to what Barbados has to offer?
Well, you know, we had a lot of plans in 2020. Indeed, soon after I heard this news coming from the Prime Minister that we were reviving the effort, I sent in to her and to some other government officials my own ideas, because we all have ideas. But I think, you know, one of the most important ideas that we heard back in 2020, and I hope that we revisit it, and I hope that we put it into effect, is that we should change our laws to extend Barbadian citizenship to the grandchildren and perhaps even the great-grandchildren born in foreign lands to Barbadian citizens. Right now, we extend citizenship to the children of Barbadians born overseas. I think we should go further. That should be extended to grandchildren and perhaps even to great-grandchildren. And I say that within the context of the Barbados population analysis that was recently done by the government, which suggested that we have an aging population and that we need inward migration to bring into Barbados young people in their economically active years that will contribute to the economy, contribute to tax revenues, contribute to the national insurance system. And I think the suggestion is that we probably need to have the ideal population. We probably need another 100,000 people. Well, obviously, for me, the best place to start is with the extended family, is with the grandchildren and great-grandchildren of Barbadians born overseas. So I think that hopefully that will be part of the process in 2025. But short of that, I think there are many things that we could do to give special benefits to members of the Barbadian diaspora, to draw them back to Barbados, to visit, to invest. How we treat them. We treat them as special visitors, and give them special benefits when they do come. And yes, and we must also make a very deliberate effort to determine the kind of talent and skills we have among the Barbadian diaspora, to identify them and to pull them into some kind of formal relationship with Barbados. So there are many, many ideas that can contend, Pearson. And as the Prime Minister says, we have now 20 to 21 months to plan this and to put it into effect. And I trust that very soon from now, we will hear the announcement of a reconstituted committee or team to put all the plans together, and that Bajans will be invited to contribute their ideas.
It is going to be such an exciting time. We've seen it in 2020. We know what it brings as well. And so we want for us as those who live on this route to be able once again to be more welcoming, I think, to other Barbadians. Sometimes there's almost an us and them feeling among ourselves that y'all live over there, we live over here. Y'all don't know about us, it's y'all live over there. To say it like a raw Bajan. But, and to be able to break that down, to be able to say, welcome home, brother. Welcome home, sister. It's good to see you again. This is where we all share. And so we have
to be primed for that. I think the population needs to be prepared that, look, when our family come home, treat them as special guests, And Shirley Chisholm, in her autobiography On Bought and On Bossed, she made the point that while she held on to her sense of Barbadian identity, she kept her accent, she identified as a Barbadian American. She said that became one of the areas in which she was actually attacked. She said it was not as severe as the disability of being black or the disability of being a woman, but that it did feature that there was some resentment. Who are these Bajans? Who are these West Indians making so much progress, going up for public office, and because she said that there was a disproportionate number of West Indians who were holding political office and other high positions in the United States. So much so that it evoked some kind of jealousy within the African American population. So the point is that this great representative of the Bajan diaspora in the United States suffered because of her Bajan self-identification. So could you imagine if you are suffering out there because you identify with Barbados, and then when you come home to Barbados, your own people, are less than welcoming. That's a real tragedy.
Yeah, and so there's a lot we can still do, folks. There's a lot we can do to adjust our attitudes and our feelings about how we see ourselves, whether we live here or we live there. And so as we get ready for this, and get ready for this afternoon's event as well, the renaming of the Vauxhall Primary School. This morning? Yes.
Yes, it's at 10 o'clock this morning. So I guess there would be a list of special invitees, but the ceremony is going to be right out on the major road. So I guess anybody could perhaps just drop by and have a look. There's going to be there's a bust of her, an inscription, there's a mural painted by our artists. So it's really going to be spectacular. And we should not lose sight of the central importance of this Barbadian woman. When she ran for that presidency back in 1972, remember Martin Luther King had been assassinated in '68. Robert Kennedy assassinated, Malcolm X assassinated, the Black Panthers were being assassinated. For a black woman in that environment to step forward and say, I am going to challenge this old boy system where only white men are deemed appropriate to hold these offices. She received several death threats. She had to be protected by the security services of the United States. A very, very courageous act. And she was actually challenging the system because she sought to bring together a coalition of oppressed minorities, women, blacks, the Hispanic people, Spanish-speaking people, poor whites. She actually tried to take into the political mainstream what Martin Luther King had been trying to do back in 1968 when he had moved from just, narrow black civil rights. He had embraced the poor white struggle. He was leading this march of poor people on Washington, D.C. So she was doing something very, very courageous, and she broke very, very important political ground in the United States of America. So that's the woman that we are honoring this morning when we rename that school in Vauxhall that she attended back in the late 1920s, early 1930s, and she said it was that education that she received in those formative years that made her able to be so articulate and so dynamic, so intelligent and full of initiative. And to have that deep sense of positive Black and Barbadian identity.
What an occasion this morning at 10 o'clock. So thank you so much, Ambassador. We've got to leave it right there. Ambassador David Chisholm, Barbados Ambassador to CARICOM. Thank you, sir.
My pleasure, Pearson.
Always. And so as you take your journey this morning, go by the school and look for the bust, look for the mural, look for the sign, and remember the story just told. We're going to take a break right here. We're coming back with more in just a moment.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
Some ask, what makes Barbados so special? We at Mornin Barbados say it's you, our exceptional youth. You are talented, resilient, and inspirational. You are the epitome of the Barbadian spirit, testing the boundaries of your creativity. If you are an entrepreneur, artist, baker, designer, author, or have done anything you think should be highlighted, email us at morninbarbados@cbc.bb. Let us show the world our exceptional Bajan youth.
Books open your heart, your mind, and your soul. They are educational, entertaining, inspiring, and motivating. Are you an author of a recent book you want to share? Then Mornin Barbados would love to
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
13 minutes now to go to the hour of 7 o'clock. Continuing almost that conversation we just had with Ambassador Chisholm, where we're highlighting the excellence of Black leadership and Black people. That's what the Inua Magazine is also about, Black and Brown leadership. And so the founder of that magazine joins us now, Dr. Ritson Campbell. Dr. Campbell, good morning to you.
Pleasant good morning to you, Pearson.
Thank you so much for joining us. Talk to me a little bit about your magazine, the philosophy of it.
Well, thank you for the opportunity and for the people of Barbados, more so the Caribbean, throughout the Caribbean. I am a son of the Caribbean soil, Ritson Campbell from Jamaica. So I identify as a Jamaican American. And Inua Magazine, the philosophy is to elevate our Black and Brown communities, writing our own stories.
How easy has that been, really, to be able to almost reset the way most people view Black people?
The magazine started out of frustration in 2020. COVID-19 brought a lot of challenges to so many of us, and it gave opportunity to a number of us as well. So out of the ashes of COVID, I was listening one day, and there was a quote from a CEO from Wells Fargo Bank saying that there is not enough Black talent. And I was so upset. There's not enough Black talent? What are they talking about? I, at the time, was looking for a job with a PhD. Couldn't find any. Send resumes out, CVs, no response. And I'm here thinking, how can they say there's not enough Black talent? Who is out there writing our stories, talking about us? Because the perception of our Black and Brown people living in the United States is most times the negative. We are up to no good, doing something off. So we set out to find out how can we elevate our own people, share our own stories. When you see in 2021, 2022, oh, the first Black person on the magazine of Essence, or the first black person on to be president of a student council of Harvard, etc. You're wondering who is sharing our stories. So that was the motivation why we started Inua Magazine, so that we can tell our stories of excellence in our black and brown communities, our young boys, our young girls who are doing exceptionally well in education, sports, entrepreneurship, and the list goes on. So that is how we started the magazine and wanted to continue to elevate. The word Inua means to elevate. It's a Swahili word. So our motive and sole purpose is to elevate our stories, share them one at a time.
One by one at a time. And it's much more than simply leadership alone. I mean, there's so many other areas in which you share those stories. Oftentimes, when we see black people in the United States in particular, we think of sports, basketball in more particular, but there's so many other areas of endeavor. And so give me a sense of how broad are the areas that you cover in the Inua magazine and the kinds of people whose story you've been able to tell.
The magazine has three components. We talk about leadership, tourism, global culture. My background is hospitality and tourism. So there was the merger of the things that I was basically passionate about, and I love to travel. Presently, I am in Ghana speaking to you. So those are the three areas that we have had the likes of great people out of the Caribbean who have graced us. We have from Barbados, who is a contributor, the Honorable Dr. Gabby Carter. He's a poet, a historian, and in each of our issues, he pens something. He writes a story for us. We have had the likes of Faye Ellington from Jamaica.
Yes.
One of the persons that growing up in Jamaica, I saw her on television, and then I got a chance to interview her. It was one of the most amazing moments for me as a little boy growing up in Jamaica. So these are some of the stories that we talk about. We share matter of fact, our production team is in Zimbabwe. Our writers are from Ghana, Nigeria, South Africa, Zimbabwe, Namibia, Jamaica, Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, St. Lucia, and the UK, United States for sure. So we have people who are contributing across sectors, sharing and making a positive difference to our communities, so that a little boy can see himself, a little girl can see herself coming from a community that might not have the resources, and to hope that one day I too can have the opportunity and be elevated because of somebody else's journey.
And I like that. I listened very carefully to your interaction with Faye Ellington, and you're quite right. She is an icon in broadcasting in Jamaica, and she teaches it still. And so your opportunity to sit with her, to talk to her, and then she opened up the world of possibilities to you. And so the Inua magazine, when the little ones, the younger ones, read it, they begin to see the possibilities that exist globally, not just within their own particular village, even though they can still too make a significant contribution where they are. How important has it been for you to be able to have those spaces? You talked about being in Ghana and different parts of Africa and the United Kingdom and the like. How important was it for you to be able to be based almost in each of those places so that you hear those stories coming from the diverse parts of the world?
Our slogan is, we are global, we are diverse, and we're inclusive. I have been traveling because I started in the hospitality and tourism space, and I also work in higher education over multicultural international student affairs at a university in the United States. So that actually created a platform for me to be in places like South Africa, Zimbabwe, Swaziland, Gambia, Zambia, Nigeria, Togo. So during my travel, it allows me to connect with people. And the connection, and when, especially on the continent of Africa, it is so similar to being in the Caribbean. When you see your own people on a billboard, when you see your own people reading the news on television, versus in the United States, and you know how the ratio is.
Yes, yes.
Very rare we see ourselves. So this opportunity, these are individuals who, through my own relationship or relationships that I have garnered along the way, who connect me to somebody. Because speaking to you today, the opportunity came about because of Christopher Harper, one of the sons of Barbados. He connected me to Cecilia Murray, and I'm interviewing her for this upcoming issue of our magazine. And she said, Rickson, you should share your story with us. I can give you that connection. So the power of networking and connection is the key to expanding Inua Magazine, getting individuals to say, hey, I want to be a part of this. Our next stop is in Uganda. Just interview a lady from Uganda because of a connection that I've had here in Ghana. Now she's going to be a contributing writer for the magazine from Uganda. So this is how we grow, one issue at a time. So we're sharing the Caribbean, we're sharing North America, South America, and the continent of Africa, our black and brown stories of excellence.
I like the fight that you're taking, because oftentimes we think the fight is with Caucasians. Sometimes the fight is among ourselves. That fight for recognition, for acceptance, and honor, really. I mean, even though we're not necessarily seeking honor, but to be able to be recognized for who we are and to be able to be appreciated for who we are as well. So how has it been among black people and brown people for in terms of the acceptance of the Inua magazine, so that they begin to actually consume what's inside?
Within our black and brown community, there are challenges, and we know some of the challenges. Especially one of them is that it is said that a lot of us, we don't read, and so we're trying to change that narrative to get our young people to read. I've given calls to universities and high schools. If you want to share your story, here's an opportunity and here's a platform that you can share. So for us, it is very important and critical among ourselves to get the buy-in. And we like, on the social media space, you'll see a lot of people, they like what you post. But sometimes when you make a statement or write a statement, then you get 1 or 2 likes. So we're trying to change that. To have people to read. When our caption, when we have the likes of Faye Ellington in Washington, D.C., the first person to grace the cover for us was Elliot Ferguson. He's a president for Destination D.C. And then we had the former president of Shaw University. We had other women in leadership gracing the cover of our magazine. And then we have across Africa. So when we see these people, see ourselves on the cover of a magazine, I'm hoping that we will move from beyond liking to subscribing.
Yes.
We are running promotion, and in the US it is $19.99 for 1 year subscription. In Ghana, where I'm at now doing a promotion, it is 50 Ghana CD. So for the peoples of the Caribbean, I'm asking you to like us on social media, yes, but more so subscribe to us on the website, inuamagazine.com.
It's a digital magazine, folks. It's a digital magazine, which means you can take it everywhere. You can see it on every device. You can just read it at any given time as well. Inua Magazine, Dr. Rickson Campbell, I want to thank you so very much for joining us from Ghana. How is it in Ghana, by the way, today?
Ghana today, it started to rain earlier, but it's 2 dials. Like the Caribbean, it's either rain or sun. So you have to pick your choice. Yeah. So, but being here in Ghana, it has been a rewarding experience, and I am hoping that the peoples of Ghana and the Caribbean, because Barbados has a huge presence here in Ghana. A matter of fact, one of the notable persons that I'm in contact with on a regular basis is Phil Phillips. He's the cultural attaché from Barbados to Ghana. So we have regular conversations and communication. So it's a network of people. And the Ghanaian Caribbean Association is alive and strong here as well. So I feel very much at home.
That's fantastic. So when we see ourselves, let's support ourselves. When we see ourselves, let's salute ourselves. When we see ourselves, let's read about ourselves. Let's be inspired by ourselves as well. And so the Inua Magazine seeks to do so, to elevate and to highlight those of black and brown in leadership and in so many other endeavors as well. There's a story to tell. Let's tell our stories. Let's read our stories. Let's be inspired by our own stories, and let's continue to showcase our best selves to the world indeed. Dr. Rickson Campbell, thank you so much for joining us this morning, and best always with your magazine as well.
I want to give your listeners, the first 50 of your listeners, complimentary access if they can go in and send us an email to inuaglobalmedia@gmail.com, Mornin Barbados.
Inua Global Media. Inua Global Media at gmail.com is the email address.
First 50 of your listeners, yes.
First 50 of you, if you email right now, get on it, and you say that, hey, I saw you on Morning Barbados, then you're going to get a complimentary entry into the magazine. Inua Global Media at gmail.com. We got that, folks? It's right there on your screen. It's right there on your screen. Inua Global Media at gmail.com. Get cracking right now. Send that email, and good luck to 50 of you. You get a free entry. Lucky you. I have to work, so I don't get a chance to email before you, but nonetheless, we'll see what we can do. Thank you so much, Dr. Campbell. All the best indeed. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Pearson, and have a wonderful day.
Likewise. Likewise. Morning Barbados takes a break here. We're coming back with the news and more in just a moment.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
Books open your heart, your mind, and your soul. They are educational, entertaining, inspiring, and motivating. Are you an author of a recent book you want to share? Then Mornin Barbados would love to feature your book in our The Next Chapter segment. Send us an email to morninbarbados@cbc.bb. That's morning without the G. Come and let us turn those pages together.
Because you love English Premier League, MCTV has got it back. Now you can watch all the games of the English Premier League plus UEFA and NFL on MCTV. Current customers can upgrade to Matchback Extra at just $23. Call MCTV today at 228-6288 to upgrade, or come in and sign up for a new service. Football fans, let MCTV get you.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
In the news now, the government of Barbados is committed to signing a new social partnership protocol on May the 1st. That announcement last night from Colin Jordan, the Minister of Labour, Social Security and the Third Sector. It was the occasion of the 30th anniversary of the signing of the first protocol by social partners in 1993.
The work of the social partners coming together has created for us a governance system in this country where all partners work together for the good of the nation. We remember the pioneering efforts of then Prime Minister Sir Lloyd Erskine Sandiford, the leader of the workers, Sir Roy Trotman, and the leader of the private sector, Sir John Stanley Goddard. These men, along with many others, worked hard to make sure that we could put together a system that could help us to get through the challenging times within which we found ourselves. And this social partnership has continued to work and to see us through many challenging times. We recommit ourselves as a government to the social partnership, to social dialogue, and to engaging with our partners in ensuring that we do all that is right to move our country forward and to improve the lives of the people of this country. We celebrate, we look forward to continuing our work as a social partnership, and we expect to be able to have a new protocol to be signed on May the 1st. That commitment is to make sure that we work together as partners to develop our country recognizing that none of us can do it alone. We need each other, and we recommit ourselves to working together for this cause.
More investigations are expected under a new suite of legislation to track down any corrupt official holding public office. Attorney General Dale Marshall says there is to be a return of the Integrity in Public Life legislation, which was previously defeated in the Senate. He's optimistic about a different outcome this time around and highlighted some of the other steps being taken to hold public servants accountable.
We've had our integrity legislation defeated in the Senate. That was in 2020. We've brought it again. I don't know what it will turn out like on this occasion. But in the meantime, as I said, we've passed a new Anti-Corruption Act. We've also brought to the statute books whistleblower protection. We've also brought new public procurement legislation, which attempts to ensure that there's transparency in all of our procurement processes. And we've also established by statute a special agency to deal with anti-corruption issues. All of these things we've done because we want to underscore the importance of accountability for all public servants. None of them are going to be popular.
The AG shared the details during a regional training workshop on anti-corruption and misconduct in public office at the Radisson Aquatica. Investigating corruption in public office in Barbados has been difficult to the point where Barbados has never seen such a case.
Also had to bring in investigators from overseas. Not that number, but we had to bring in investigators from overseas because in a country with just under 300,000 people, everybody knows everybody. If you don't go to school with somebody else, you went to the same school, your children probably go to the same Sunday school, and it's really very difficult in a small society like ours to be able to convincingly pursue matters in terms of investigation where acts of dishonesty are involved.
Within another 5 months, a number of social services should be officially amalgamated. Minister of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs, Kirk Humphrey, says they are in a process of deep transformation.
Hopefully by September, October, to be able to announce the amalgamation of the social services in Barbados. We have brought together the Welfare Department, Child Care Board, National Assistance Board, and the National Disabilities Unit. It is our view that in so doing we bring together all of the social workers and we are able to tackle these problems holistically, as opposed to going to a house and dealing only with the children, one agency. Another agency goes to the house, they only care themselves about the persons with disabilities. No. We want to be able to tackle the whole family. And I think that is what the amalgamation would allow us to do. Along with the amalgamation, you also are aware that we are deeply involved in legislative reform. We are reforming the disabilities legislation. I have the draft. The cabinet paper goes to cabinet next month. That cabinet paper has draft legislation, and it has a policy that has been ventilated significantly across Barbados. We met with all the stakeholders. We had public consultations. I believe it was properly ventilated. That goes to cabinet next week. We are about to finalize with the Law Reform Commission the elderly legislation too, the draft of that, and the drafting instructions. We have the policy. And as you all are aware, we have laid in Parliament the child protection legislation.
Well, that's our news until now. We'll have more news coming up at 12 noon in the CBC Newsday. Morning Barbados takes a break here. We're back in just a moment.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
Because you love English Premier League, MCTV has got it back. Now you can watch all the games of the English Premier League plus UEFA and NFL on MCTV. Current customers can upgrade to Maxback Extra at just $23. Call MCTV today at 228-6288 to upgrade or come in and sign up for our new service. Football fans, let MCTV get you back in the game.
Hi, I am Jaheem Thomas, one of the team leaders of Project SOF. Project SOF is a very transformational program for youth who are now going into secondary school. It helps them with their team building, effective communication, decision making, and also raise awareness of drug use. For me, Project Solve definitely impacted my life, especially as a team leader. Dealing with children every day, it was for me to honestly wonder, am I making the right decisions when I approach these children? And not only that, but are they developing as well and taking in information that they're being taught? Project Solve also benefits those children, as I mentioned earlier.
Good morning to you.
War is my life, brother.
Hi, I am Jaheem Thomas, one of the team leaders of Project Solve. Project Solve is a very transformational program for youth who are now going into secondary school. It helps them with their team building, effective communication, decision making, and also raise awareness of drug use. For me, Project Solve definitely impacted my life, especially as a team leader. Dealing with children every day, it was for me to honestly wonder, am I making the right decisions when I approach these children? And not only that, but are they developing as well and taking in information that they're being taught? Project Solve also benefits those children, as I mentioned earlier. But one of the major things I have seen, especially from children coming out of Project Solve, is the impact that it has made on them even after the program. Recently, I went to one of these schools where I saw some of these students. And when they came to me, the effect, the impact that I got, because they said, Uncle Jaheem, and to see that relationship still sticks with them, to see that they still remember everything, because they were like, Uncle Jaheem, you come in and watch me, run. That is important. And I believe that it is in those moments that it really helped us.
That's the date. Today, not today, tomorrow. Get ahead of myself now. I'm almost excited to see it myself. My brother's keeper. I'm joined now by two famous men. In Carlos Cobham of Barbados, we know him well. And then you all know this guy? The guy next to me right here, Robert Richard. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning, Barbados. Good morning.
All right. Now, if you watch Empire, you know this face. If you watch My Brother's Keeper, you'll know this face. You know he's a famous actor indeed. Carlos, I'll start with you. Here we are. We are just a day away from the day.
Yes, sir.
Where we get to see this. So talk to me a little bit about what one can expect tomorrow in theaters.
Yes, tomorrow you will see My Brother's Keeper, and as you know, it's produced by Mans and Mackie Studios, and we are just excited, to share this with Barbados. The movie would have been shared in the USA, but this is the first time that it's going to be in Barbados cinemas, and Ty Mans is thrilled about it. TC Stallings is thrilled about it too. We got a video from him last night, and also we got Robert Richard in the building. And if you are at Olympus Theaters tomorrow and the Globe Drive-In, you just may come across another brother.
At the Olympus Theatre tomorrow, or the Globe Drive-In tomorrow.
Yes,
and what time are shows tomorrow?
Okay, so 8:30, that will be at the Globe Drive-In. And I believe Olympus I'm subject to correction at the moment, but I believe it's around 7.
Okay.
Correct me, but around that time at Olympus Theaters.
Check the Olympus Theatres to find out the screening time. Of course, at the Drive-In it's at 8:30. Robert, welcome to Barbados.
It's good to be home. Good morning.
Oh, I like that. I like the way you said that. It's good to be home.
Yeah.
Why do you say that?
The hospitality here is just incredible. The people of Barbados and just the West Indies and all the islands. It's been amazing, and it's good to have Carlos here to host us. And we're here promoting My Brother's Keeper, and I want everyone to go out and enjoy it. We saw a screening last night, and it was riveting. It was fun, and people got a little bit emotional and stuff too. It was good, and we're here promoting the film.
What's your character in the film?
I played Sweatsuit Donnie, so I sort of relate to more of the young people in the film. My best friend's home from the Army, and he's struggling internally. He's got a little bit of spiritual stuff that he's dealing with, a little bit of mental stuff, and he's suffering from PTSD. And my character is his best friend, and they have some things that are clandestine, some things that are secrets that are between us that come out in the movie, things that Donnie was involved with as his best friend that maybe that TC's character didn't know. So that's revealed in the film.
Bishop Mackey invited me to be a part of the project, and we shot it in the military base in Florida-Georgia line, and it's great.
As an actor, you're accustomed to getting yourself into character, to researching and getting into character. How is it, though, getting into this particular character, dealing with such a heavy subject as PTSD?
Yeah, so this movie is a faith-based movie, and we shot it in Georgia, which has a big faith community. So one thing that we're doing is we're at the church, shooting at the church, and then also my whole family's military. It's a military movie, so I did call my dad and asked him some questions about suffering from getting back home from the war. My dad fought in the Korean War, so. But I really dive into it sort of head first and feet first, because I love sort of giving all of myself to my characters, making it great for the audience.
And so, Carlos, for those who come to watch the movie tomorrow, it's not a religious movie, first of all, even though it's one based on faith. I just want to make that very, very clear. So what kind of experience do you think one can come away with from the movie?
Forgiveness, I think also it would give people a level of openness to discovery of oneself. When you look at, T.C. Stallings and what he went through as a character, having to battle with the same PTSD, he still found himself in the process, and he felt like he also couldn't find his relationship with God back, So I think one would be able to reflect on the individual development as a person, and also be able to draw their reference to their relationship with God, and I really think that the story is very impactful, and it could reach literally any person, and forgiveness is one of the major highlights in the themes of that movie.
And in a time like this, when somehow we're finding ourselves disconnected as a community, and My Brother's Keeper seems to show how we can reconnect, how we can truly be our brother's keeper, how we can put aside ourselves for just a moment and to empathize to the point where we're able to bring that person out of. Did you see that as your role, Richard?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, a lot of times there's a lot of internal questions that we all have about, where we find peace, where we find love, where we find connection. And as you're drawing closer to, the people around you, those answers are revealed. And I think that's, in this movie, that's a big, also underlying thematic is like, where do we find these answers? And I think we have to find those answers together.
Interesting. The women, the female characters, how it's called My Brother's Keeper.
Yeah.
We say the brothers keeping each other. But how did the female characters interplay with the whole plot so that it really brings out the message of My Brother's Keeper?
I think what Carlos said is actually pretty right, just the empathy and creating a nurturing environment for the men to actually be vulnerable and to open up and to say that, hey, you're in a safe space. There's one scene where Keisha Pullum, she's in a sort of like a community center or whatever, and she's there with all the men. She says it's a safe space. So I think that's where the women sort of create that pot for the plant to grow.
Building a family, building a community is a family.
Yes.
In itself. And so from your experience as an actor, though, and from this experience in My Brother's Keeper, what do you see to be the message for the family in total, from mommy, daddy, down to child, and grandparents included, that this movie, My Brother's Keeper, seeks to tell?
I think what you said is actually pretty important, that a lot of times we sort of have this individual way of seeing our lives and sort of like this self-promotion, and that's really prominent today. But we do sort of need to depend on each other and lean on each other. Correct. So that's spending more time together, spending time with people that you love, talking with them. And this movie highlights that in a very riveting way. We've got, a lot of action in this movie. We've got some, gunplay in this movie and whatnot, and it's got some good twists and turns. So to do that and still keep it exciting is great.
It's great indeed. How long did it take to film, to put it all together?
We did about 2 months to film this movie, and the director did an outstanding job.
Yeah, I always wonder, how do you memorize so many lines for a movie? How do you do it?
I sort of have my own method, sort of the Richard method of how I memorize.
Oh boy. So in other words, we're not ever going to know.
Yes, it's one of the crafts that I have, but yeah.
Yeah, but Carlos, isn't it amazing that truly that you can take a script, and because it's a dialogue, you have to say certain words that trigger certain responses.
Indeed.
But to be on point every time has to be. I myself, I have to read this, to stay on point. So can you imagine acting without this in your hand to be able to still maintain your character? It has to be tough.
Oh yeah, most definitely. It takes a lot of, Richard method training.
Oh yeah, I think it's a talent. I started off in theater, so I got used to learning the entire script.
Yes.
So now being on set and just doing like 1 or 2 scenes, it's just athletes do their plays and I do my plays.
All right. Are there public appearances, Carlos, for this? I know they very well may see him at the end of the movie showing tomorrow.
Yeah, most definitely. We're going to be doing some cinema pop-ups. So we look forward to coming on down to Olympus Theaters and also the Globe Drive-In. So look on out, guys.
It's called My Brother's Keeper. It is on tomorrow evening at the Drive-In at 8:30, perhaps around 7 o'clock or thereabouts at the cinemas at the Olympus Theaters. But you need to call Olympus and find out just when the screening is, so that you are definitely in there and on time to see every second of My Brother's Keeper, a gripping story that tells a tale of a man battling with PTSD and how his best friend, how his friends, his keepers are really able to help to bring him back from the brink, to be able to help him through, and how the women have encouraged the men to bond in the way that's significant as well. So far today, we talk a lot about how males bond, and we cast it in all sorts of definitions, but this movie seeks to break that down.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that, with God and love is sort of like the center hub, but also just heavy communication and leaning on each other and transparency.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard for people to talk to each other, but you have to sort of get over that hump and say, hey, I want to sit down with you, break some bread, have a donut or something like that, and talk and really get things out.
Yep. Robert Richard is in Barbados, folks. He's in Barbados. Ladies, he's in Barbados. Look for him. He's going to be walking the streets very, very soon. But we're kind. We're kind people. Don't worry about it.
You guys are very kind.
So don't worry about it. But he's in Barbados. Carlos, all the best.
Thank you.
I know this is just another one of the projects that you work on.
Yes,
and
sir.
that you've brought to Barbados now, My Brother's Keeper. What's next?
We're working towards the United International Arts Expo and gearing towards September. And we're encouraging, corporate Barbados to surround it, encouraging our youth and families to surround it. And we'd love to have Robert back. Up to last night, we were at the premiere red carpet event, and others are like, okay, after those interviews, in 5-10 minutes, no, we need Robert for about couple days to go over the Richard method, and so we're working on that. Really grateful for Bell Holder and Ishaka McNeil and the others from last night. But to answer your question about the future, United International Arts Expo, and we would like to also create some movies eventually, producing our own stories, and hopefully we can have Robert a part of it and some other actors a part of it, and Taimans, guiding us and distributing globally.
This is fantastic. The future is bright indeed, and thanks to these two young men sitting across from me, make me feel so old already. But nonetheless, good to meet you, Robert Richard. Welcome again to Barbados. I truly hope that you enjoy yourself while you're here. Take some time to experience who we are.
I'm loving it right now. Yeah, the people are great, and like I said, this is Barbados is paradise. So
you're not just saying that, are you?
No, I'm not. It's from the moment that we got off the plane, just the warmth of everybody. It's been all hugs and hospitality. And then last evening at the Lime Grove was where we were at. Yes, the red carpet was great, and all the people just came out and were all smiles. It was great.
Fantastic. See, that's who we are.
I met Mrs. Nias too, who was
Anet Nias at NCF.
Yeah, the film coordinator.
Yes,
she was
film
there last night as well.
Yes, she was fantastic.
She's ready to take you on. I'm sure she's ready to take you on. Well,
nice.
That's how we do it here. That's how we do it. But it's good to see you, meet you for the very first time. And Carlos, as always, it's good to have you company.
Thank you, person.
As always, Carlos Cobham and Robert Richard in Barbados. My Brother's Keeper. The film is in the cinemas tomorrow, April the 5th. Remember, at the Globe Drive-In at 8:30. And at the Olympus Theaters from around 7 or thereabouts. But get your tickets soon, get in there and come away talking about it, because I'm sure that there's a conversation that will be stirred thereafter. Thank you again, gentlemen. Morning Barbados takes a break here. We're coming back in just a moment.
Hey everybody, how you doing? I am TC Stallings,
awesome.
and I'm
Thank
really
you
excited right now
segment.
because
Thank
you guys are about to check out My Brother's Keeper. I'm so excited that the film gets to come to you, the great people of Barbados, and I hope you enjoy it with all your families. It's a film that I'm very, very proud of. So I want to thank Olympus Theaters, Globe Drive-In, and Quest Network for showing the film. Again, I hope you just have a great time watching it. Hope it inspires you. God bless.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
Hi, I am Jaheem Thomas, one of the team leaders of Project SAW. Project Soft is a very transformational program for youth who are now going into secondary school. It helps them with their team building, effective communication, decision making, and also raise awareness of drug use. For me, Project Soft definitely impacted my life, especially as a team leader. Dealing with children every day, it was for me to honestly wonder, am I making the right decisions when I approach these children? And not only that, but are they developing as well and taking in information that they're being taught? Project Soft also benefits those children, as I mentioned earlier. But one of the major things I have seen, especially from children coming out of Project Soft, is the impact that it has made on them even after the program. Recently, I went to one of these schools where I saw some of these students. And when they came to me, the effect, the impact that I got, because they said, Uncle Jahim, and to see that relationship still sticks with them, to see that they still remember everything, because they were like, Uncle Jahim.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
25 and a half minutes now after 7 o'clock. We're paying a visit to Dr. Julian Birchwood of Pediatrician this morning. Dr. Birchwood, good morning to you.
Good morning, Pearson. How are you doing today?
I am well today. How do you do?
I can't complain. I'm alive, so there's no complaint.
Amen. And again, we're wearing similar colors. You need to stop. You need to stop that. You really don't need
Clearly,
to
I'm
stop.
peeping over your shoulder.
Yes, you are. But today we want to look at this interesting disease known as hand, foot, and mouth disease. What is that, and why are children in particular the ones who get it?
So, hand, foot, and mouth disease is actually definitely, on the rise right now in Barbados. It happens at different times of the year, and it is a viral illness that affects particularly children under the age of 5 years. So it's something that you see particularly in younger children, although sometimes you can see it in older children, and occasionally you can see it in adults. And it's not to be confused with hoof and mouth disease. Most of us don't have hoofs, and so hoof and mouth is something that we see in cows, goats, sheep, that sort of thing. But hand, foot, and mouth disease, as the name suggests, is a viral illness that you can see manifested in the mouth, hands, and feet, typically.
Under 5 years old, you talked about primarily for those children, and that's oftentimes because they're so social as beings.
Yes.
They touch everything, they taste everything, they want to experience everything. And is it simply because of that?
Well, it is spread, just like many other viruses, by the secretions or the fluids from an infected person. So you'll find that if a child has hand, foot, and mouth disease, they put a toy in their mouth, they get the fluids that are infected with it all over that toy, and then they pass it to the next child, who then puts it in their mouth. That's definitely a common way that it can be spread. So it tends to be much more rampant in preschool, daycare, and primary school settings with the younger age group. But it can also be spread by feces, so caregivers were involved in changing children's pampers, and if children sneeze or cough, it can be spread in that way. And it's really very, very contagious. So it's very easily spread. If you see one case, you probably have 10.
So hygiene is important. So wash your hands when you're changing the little ones at the nurseries and at home. Keep the area clean and sanitized. Is it possible to have had early inset of hand, foot, and mouth disease and not know?
Yes. So many children will actually show the signs and symptoms. However, many children have no symptoms whatsoever. Yet they may be quite contagious and easily spread it, and it can be quite frustrating. You may drop your child off at the daycare and everybody looks well, but then one child comes home and then develops the signs of hand, foot, and mouth. And you might wonder, how on earth did this develop?
Yes.
But really, it is that child, one of the children did not have symptoms, and they can be contagious for weeks after they have had the illness. So even though they may not be showing the signs, they can be contagious for weeks. Although typically you are most contagious in the first week or so after you contract the infection, you can still definitely spread it for quite some time to come. And so it's really important to know that even if your child has no symptoms, it does not mean that they don't have hand, foot, and mouth, and it does not mean that they're not contagious.
So how do you know the child has hand, foot, and mouth?
So the cardinal signs would be a fever in children who do have symptoms, a fever, that characteristic rash, which you can see around the mouth, inside the mouth, sometimes down in the pockets, the folds on the inside of the mouth. So you're not necessarily going to see it as a parent because it may be hidden. You may have a child who's drooling because they have quite a bit of pain in their mouth and they don't want to swallow. There may be an offensive odor to the breath. You may see the rash on the arms from the elbows down to the hands and typically from the knees down to the soles of the feet. And it shows up as little red or brownish spots, which can progress and then blister. And then you will notice it as, wow, okay, this is definitely hand, foot, and mouth in the characteristic distribution. But it may not show up in all children. And it may not be in all areas at the same time.
So the minute you begin to see those little reddish spots beginning to appear on your child's skin, the hands, the feet, and you can't see the folds of the mouth, but certainly the hands and the feet, you start to pay attention very closely and don't assume it's just heat rash. Because, oh, it said it's so hot, it's just a heat rash. Sometimes it's not simply just a heat rash. That's what you're saying to us.
Yes. So if you do see a rash, especially right now, because we've been seeing an increasing number of cases, hopefully we're not on the edge of a full-on outbreak. But if you see a rash and it doesn't always show up, as blisters right away, it may be quite a fine rash, which parents do think it might be just heat-related or they don't pay much attention to it. It could well be hand, foot, and mouth. So take a closer look. And as I said, often parents do not see the ulcers in the mouth. You have to really look very well down in the folds of the mouth or at the very back of the throat, and then you can see those characteristic ulcers. But they are very often missed by parents in the early stages of disease, and the kids still go off to school and spread it to other children, unfortunately.
But what you do see is that the child begins to either consume solids or liquids a lot differently, and you're wondering, why are you being so miserable when it comes to eating when previously you were not as miserable? Don't brush that off. Take that seriously to find out why.
Absolutely. So, if the mouth is sore, they don't want to swallow, or they might clearly prefer cold liquids. Foods that they like very much, they might avoid because they might sting the inside of the mouth, for example, or cause this soreness in the throat to be even worse. So pay attention if your child is a little bit off, and doesn't seem to be quite themselves, is not taking the things that they normally do with enthusiasm. It could be that there is something brewing there, and they will clearly like cold things because it will soothe the back of the throat and the ulcers that are in the mouth and make them feel better. So do pay attention, especially now since cases are on the rise, unfortunately.
So what do we do? Do we go to the pharmacy, we get a topical cream and we apply it? How do we treat to it?
Well, fortunately, hand, foot, and mouth is a self-limiting disease. So in other words, whether you treat it with one thing or the other, it's going to go away, usually within a week to 10 days. But the focus on treatment is two things. You want to keep your child comfortable. You don't want them to be in pain and uncomfortable. So pain medications, which are available over the counter in most cases, would be a good idea to just help soothe your child. And for children who have ulcers that are painful, the kind of gels that you use for teething can be helpful to put on those sore spots. So teething gels can sometimes be really helpful because they are essentially local anesthetics. That is, they numb the area directly where they are applied, and those can really bring relief to children. The second aspect, other than keeping children comfortable, is making sure that they do not become dehydrated. Because if you have a child who's refusing to drink, they can become quite dehydrated, and this is one reason why children with hand, foot, and mouth may end up in a hospital setting, because they are not drinking and are at risk for dehydration or are already dehydrated. And if a toddler does not want something and they clamp those little gums down or those little lips down, there's nothing you can do to get them to drink. And so it's really important to push fluids. Small amounts frequently can really make a big difference for preventing dehydration.
and within a week to 10 days, it can all be resolved. Are there any residual effects following hand, foot, and mouth disease, though? Because I'd like to know whether or not there's scarring, whether there are any long-term impacts that could come as a result of a child being diagnosed with hand, foot, and mouth disease.
So hand, foot, and mouth is generally mild. So it's really uncommon that you will find that children have major severe complications. But remembering that it is caused by a virus, very, very, very infrequently, you can have that virus affect other parts of the body, and very infrequently you can develop something called an encephalitis, which is an infection that affects the lining of the brain, and that can be very, very serious, but it's extremely rare, so I would not want parents to think that that is a likely or common complication of hand, foot, and mouth. After the rash resolves, you can find that the hand, foot, and mouth areas that had the blisters can actually peel, and sometimes that's the first time parents notice that their child had hand, foot, and mouth. And by that time, it's pretty much over. As the rash dries up, it can peel quite a bit, and sometimes the fingernails and toenails can actually drop off and then regrow. So that might be alarming to parents, but it actually is harmless, and the nails will eventually grow back.
I'm sorry, you should have seen me here. I cringed at the idea of fingernails and toenails dropping off. Oh my goodness me, what a painful experience. So you said sometimes it happens in adults as well, right?
Yes, it's uncommon, so you don't need to worry, Pearson, that you're going to pick up hand, foot, and mouth.
Good. Glad to hear that.
It's possible, but it's not common.
So if you have a child today who is exhibiting the early symptoms, you don't send them to daycare. You try to take them out of the environment and to be treated at home. Is that what you're suggesting? Isolation, so to speak?
Yes, parents, please don't send your children to school with hand, foot, and mouth. First of all, the children are usually miserable when they have it. Secondly, you will spread everyone else and their families. And it's a much better idea during the most highly infectious period, which is the first week after the hand, foot, and mouth. It's a really good idea to keep your children home. Yes, they may be contagious for weeks, but not highly contagious as during that first week of life. So please don't send them. Plus, they're not a pretty sight when they have rash all over them, so it's not a good idea to send them into school then.
Children can be brutally honest sometimes, so don't send them. Don't expose them to the horrors of that brutality. And so, nonetheless, it's something that can be managed, and you can just make sure you reach out to your pediatrician to help in the management of it if you're uncertain what to do. But it can be managed, but you've got to spot it early and make sure you take great care of their little one, because they're too precious. Dr. Birchwood, thank you as always for joining us this morning. We look forward to seeing you again real soon.
Thank you very much. Have a great day, Pearson.
Likewise.
And Barbados.
Likewise. Dr. Gillian Birchwood, our pediatrician. Today we took a look at hand, foot, and mouth disease. Now you know better. Now you expect to do better for your children. We'll take a break here. We're coming back with more in just a moment.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
Hi, I am Jahin Thomas, one of the team leaders of Project SOF. Project SOF is a very transformational program for youth who are now going into secondary school.
morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
21 minutes now to go to the hour of 8 o'clock, and there are 57 days. I wonder why 57 days of emotions. I wonder why the number 57 is so significant. Dion Carrington believes he knows the answer. Dion, good morning to you.
Good morning, Pearson. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. 57, what's the significance of that number?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's no great significance, you know. I wanted to dive a bit deeper into my emotional self, figure out who I am in that side of things, in that vein. And I simply Googled list of emotions, found one with 57 on it, and started calling this project 57 Days of Emotions.
So why did you want to know more about your emotions?
Growing up, I found that I've always been an emotional person. And as a boy, you know, that's often frowned upon. Being in touch with the emotions, crying often, even smiling, you know, smiling and sharing with others. And I had to learn, like many other boys and young men do, to turn that off, to lock that side of myself inside of me, and to not express it. But I found that that brought more challenges than it did help the situation. So I decided on my own that I would, you know, I'd dive back into this thing and see if it could help me regain a sense of self.
At what stage were you, at what age were you that caused you to delve in to discover yourself and your emotional states? How old were you?
I was 25 at the time, right? So this would have been last year. I, you know, simply during the pandemic, you know, things are still closed down. I said now is a good time, or better time than any.
So for those 25 years, you were miserable with yourself, and you were trying to figure why were other people miserable with you being the way you are.
Right.
And so you wanted to know better so that you're now able to clarify who you are. Are you clearer now on your own emotional states?
Oh, the clarity is almost frightening.
So what have you found?
I've found that it's not a bad thing to engage with and to honor my emotional self. And, you know, I've also found that sometimes it's okay to turn it off. It's okay to not consider how you feel, even though that sounds really bad. But it's also extremely important to know and understand how you feel so that you can acknowledge it when the time is right.
So you can manage it when the time is right. And so at some point you have to stop for just a moment and figure, okay, it's the right time to take management of it. And then the other times you figure, I need to go through it anyway. And even that is management of it too, as well. So you've put together now something called 57 Days of Emotions. 57 Days of Emotions. And so I believe, when I look at the title alone, that it over those 57 days, you're taking time to introspect a lot. And you're taking time to also put into context why it is that you feel the way you feel, but coming out of it, it motivates you, it strengthens you.
100%. Yeah.
And so the ranges of emotions that you've experienced and the waves of those emotions, what kinds of emotions have you had to tackle? And that this book, 57 Days of Emotions, will seek to help me tackle as well.
Yeah, well, you know, this is not a self-help book. I want to say that right. This is my artistic expression of self. This is my reconnection with my emotional self. And one person can read it and say to themselves, maybe I could do this work for myself as well. As it pertains to the emotions that I went through trying to write this offering, I found most difficulty with grief. Having experienced loss in different ways. Happiness was also something that was a bit challenging to write on because it's so easy to write about what's difficult to deal with. There's so much motivation, there's so much nuance that can be applied there, but happy is just, you know, sunshine and butterflies and rainbows and
yes.
Yeah, it's so lively that it could almost be redundant. So I decided to go, you know, a completely different route with regards to happiness. And irritated, some of these emotions that you feel it, but in order to express it, there's a challenge that arises.
And so in expressing all of these, it no doubt would have been cathartic for you. You begin to, it was therapy, working it through, to be able to take the time to, as you said, it's easier to talk about the things that annoy you, the things that bring you upset. But when you have to talk about happiness and to be able to define what that is for you, it gets a little bit more difficult. And so having been able now to pull yourself out of those emotions for just a moment to put it onto paper, you no doubt feel stronger and better for it.
Yeah, I'm eternally grateful that I decided to do this work. It wasn't intended to be a book. I was simply doing shadow work. It was just a means by which I would become a better person, a better version of myself. And eventually, after about 2 weeks of working on this daily, I said to myself, this is great. And I think it's more important than just me, and I need to figure out a way to put this out into the world to get people to see the value of men accepting and embracing their emotional selves.
Was this inspiration from within, or did someone or some circumstance move you in this direction to be able to document these 57 days of emotions?
I think being in a position where you're with friends, you're with family, you're spending time with loved ones, and often you find it difficult being able to express just the way you feel. And you want people to understand how you feel. You want people to understand what you're thinking, what you're going through. And you don't want to limit that to just frustration, anger, rage, the typical ways that we allow boys and men to express themselves in society. That's where my motivation came from, wanting to better communicate with the people around me, wanting to better communicate with myself as to what I was going through, what I may have been having difficulty with,
You said boys and men, and that is deliberate, because oftentimes it's the men who have challenges in defining that emotion and being able to clarify what that emotion is, and then you get the confusing noise that come from women in trying to define it for you, and then as a consequence there's total confusion. And so for you, this book, 57 Days of Emotion, will help men to be able to confront the ranges of emotions that you've had to confront, and boys as well, to be able to define what those are, so that you can really, navigate through the noise of life, whether it's noise from other people or the noise from circumstances. Am I reading you correctly?
You are. That's the ideal there, Pearson. I actually included a few short stories from real events in my life, true events in my life, so that men can take a look back and say to themselves, this seems familiar. I've been through this myself. How did I feel in that situation? Ask themselves that question. How did I feel in that situation? Did I feel the same way Dion felt? Was I a character? Or, was I similar to anyone in these stories that Dion is telling? Who was I in that space? How did I feel? And what am I going to do about that?
Have you been able, Dion, so far in your 26 years, young man, to define what your purpose is?
I think my purpose is to tell stories. Yeah, no, it might sound
yes.
fast, but I think that I consume information and put things together in such a way that it's my job to share these stories that I encounter, that I experience myself. And my best friend and first editor for this book, he told me before I even knew, he said, Dion, you're a storyteller. And every time we sit down to lime or, hang out, I would be telling stories, but I never considered myself or identified myself as a storyteller until he said it.
I heard it. That's why I had to ask you that question. And so you have now no choice but to live your purpose. Is this your first book? And if not, what else did you do?
This is my first book.
Right.
I've been writing for about 7 years prior, just poetry, to get through it. But now, as I now call myself a writer, I'm leaning into other types of writing. So I'm currently working on the research process of my next book. I'm writing a script as part of the Writing for Performance program with the Royal Court Theatre based in the UK. I was actually just in Barbados last week for a week-long intensive program as part of that. And just some other things. Things as well, but I haven't gotten too far in those other endeavors to be able to chat about it.
All right, no problem. So the Dion of a year ago is not the Dion we see today. He's a lot more confident and in control of his emotions. He sees them now for what they are. He's now better able to navigate those emotions, and he wants to help those of you who may find yourselves still being able to be, who find yourselves being pulled apart by your own emotions, to see yourself in his 57 days of emotions. And maybe you can knit yourself back together to be the whole that you see in front of you now in Dion Carrington. So Dion, I want to thank you so much for joining us. For those who want to get a hand on the book, how can they do so?
Thank you for having me again, Pearson. To get a copy of the book, right now, I do not have international shipping.
That's all right.
However, I have published on Amazon, so you can search my name, Dion Carrington, on Amazon, or 57 Days of Emotions, and you will be able to buy yourself an ebook copy, right? Which you can read on your phone via the Kindle app or on your tablet as well.
Indeed. And so take your time to read, everybody. Take your time to read. Now, the thing about reading is you don't have to rush to get to the end, because it's not a case of, oh, I can't wait to see how the story ends. You take your time, 57 Days of Emotions, and you can reread and reread and reread until you get it right and you find solace within, as Dion clearly exhibits this morning, the solace within. Now you're better able to understand your emotions and not be defined of other people's definition of what you're feeling. You feel it, you know what it is, and you own it. So thank you, Dion Carrington, for joining us this morning. I wish you well in your future endeavors. Continue writing. The writer in you is bursting to come out. So continue telling stories, indeed. We can't wait to read. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you again.
You're very welcome. Dion Carrington is his name. The book is called 57 Days of Emotions. We're going to take a break here. We're coming back with more in a moment.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
Hi, I am Jaheem Thomas, one of the team leaders of Project SOF. Project SOF is a very transformational program for youth who are now going into secondary school. It helps them with their team building, effective communication, decision making, and also raise awareness of drug use. For me, Project SOF definitely impacted my life, especially as a team leader. Dealing with children every day, it was for me to honestly wonder, am I making the right decisions when I approach these children? And not only that, but are they developing as well and taking in information that they're being taught? Project SOF also benefits those children, as I mentioned earlier. But one of the major things I have seen, especially from children coming out of Project SOF, is the impact that it has made on them even after the program. Recently, I went to one of these schools where I saw some of these students. And when they came to me, the effect, the impact that I got, because they said, Uncle Jaheem, and to see that relationship still sticks with them, to see that they still remember everything, because they were like, Uncle Jaheem, you come in and watch me, run. That is important. And I believe that it is in those moments that it really helped us not only sustain, but safeguard our future today.
This Easter, CBC is having an Easter bonnet decorating competition where anybody, old or young, can participate. All you need is a bonnet or a hat for those who don't know, some glitter, some Easter eggs, some flowers, maybe even some chocolate. Take a photo of your finished product and send to Mornin Barbados at cbc.bb or WhatsApp 467-5
So, 6 minutes now to go to the hour of 8 o'clock this Tuesday morning. Have you already voted? Remember, the CBC Easter Bonnet competition is on. We've posted it on social media. I hope you are sharing it with your friends so that they can like. The more likes, the merrier for you. And the greater the opportunity truly for you to win $250 indeed. So it's right there on our Morning Barbados page. And we have so many of them already. So many of you, contestant by contestant by contestant, we're sharing with you. So when you go to our Facebook page, Morning Barbados, this is what you will see. All you need to do is to like away. If you want to comment, that's up to you. But like away here, because it's the likes that give these people the opportunity to win $250. Thanks to our sponsors, indeed. Thanks to Superstar Shoe Shop, Skates Life Barbados, and of course Morning Barbados. So get onto our Facebook page. That is what you will see. And in seeing that, you take the time, open up the picture, look at it. I know you'll tend to do that on your social media. Click them anyhow and explore the beauty of these wonderful creations sent in by you, our viewers. And we thank all of you. There are videos and their photographs as well. So quite a number of them are posted on our Facebook page on Morning Barbados, and you vote. You vote by your likes. So I encourage all of you who have entered, if you're smart enough, share them here, share them with other people you know, and let them assist you to garner your votes. But the person who receives the most votes wins the $250, and you'll also have an opportunity to join us right here on Morning Barbados. You might sit where Robert Richard did this morning. You never know. You'll be sitting in a seat where a famous gentleman was once sitting, and you could be featured right here on Morning Barbados. So get voting, get cracking, get sharing, get doing, and we wish you the best of luck indeed. Easter is just a matter of days away. As a matter of fact, today being Tuesday, the 4th of April, it's Memorial Day for Jehovah's Witnesses, and so you're encouraged to go on to jw.org, find that congregation at Keenum Hall near to you, and be a part of it. It's Holy Week. Monday, Thursday is coming up. Then on Friday is Good Friday. And I know a number of you tend to want to consume your fish products on Good Friday. Have you gone out yet to any of the fish markets to get your latest batch of whether it's flying fish or dolphin? I am not going to say mahi-mahi. I'm just going to say dolphin and all of the other deep water fish that you love to consume. I wish you well, but let fish be a part of your menu this weekend as well. Then there's Holy Saturday, when you still will get out and do your shopping. I know y'all can't miss a Saturday without hitting the supermarket or the malls or wherever. And then on Sunday, it is Easter Sunday. Easter Sunday, when you take some time to get back into church once again and to really mark the occasion of the resurrection of Christ our Savior. Monday is a public holiday as well. That's Easter Monday. Time for you to get out there and fly your kites. I know a number of you gentlemen have been building those kites. Do y'all remember any time, or were any of you a kite builder at all? I remember growing up as a little one, we used to take our sticks, the cane bits, we peel the cane and let it dry. It gets hard, and you build your kite. And all the times we had. Kite flying has truly become one of our favorite pastimes as children. So let the children have that fun as well with that favorite pastime of kite flying. You know what makes it even more special? When they make the kite themselves, or you work along with them in building that kite. So create that moment this holiday weekend by building some kites with the children and take them onto the open space and fly it. Let it fly, watch it fly, and enjoy it indeed so. But for those of you who want to be a little bit creative and want to pull that noisy thing onto your kites, remember, there's a law against that now, particularly at night. So you reel it back in so it doesn't disturb anyone's peace at night. And a word also to those of you who do karaoke in the evenings, turn down the volume after a certain hour, because as we grow older, that noise can really begin to annoy. So just a few things I want you to pay close attention to. Now, remember to go onto our Facebook page, Morning Barbados, and you'll begin to like all of those photographs, those entries into our Easter Bonnet competition, and we thank you for doing so. A big thanks to all of you who have already done so, and we encourage you to do that. You said? All right, take a look at your screen, folks, now. Organ donation, deceased and living, the way forward. It's a panel discussion featuring these esteemed people, and that panel discussion is today. Today, and it goes from 6 until 8 this evening in the Combermere School Hall at Waterford. We encourage all of you, if you possibly can, organ donation the way forward. That discussion is on this evening, a panel discussion by these esteemed folks in the Combermere School Hall from 6 this evening. That's where you go. Meet Dr. O'Shea. She'll be there, and Dr. Velmus Canterbury as well. Those are a couple of the panelists, and so you're encouraged to be a part of the audience. All right, that's it for today, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. My producer has been Nadia Foster. My technical director has been Miss Greenwich. She's going to beat me when I get up from here. Roll Ford has assisted. Sound engineer has been Christopher Bleman. And master controller has been Tamisha Green. Our makeup artist has been Joanna Jones. I'm Pearson Boyne for all of them. To each of you, we say thank you. Tisha Hines will be with you tomorrow. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Barbados, get up. Good morning.